Recently I've been using a very old manual lens on my Sony A7III and I took pretty good photos with it, and it's maybe 30 years old. So I want to tell you about what happened, why I'm using this lens, and why lenses aren't everything. Well, gear is not everything, it's not holy. So let's dive into it. A while ago I was filming a test video to become my first YouTube video. It didn't make it, but that's fine. And I was shooting with my Sony A7III f4 G lens, a fantastic lens, and I dropped it on my trip, and that was terrible, really terrible. I took it off the ground, it was fallen onto the top of leaves, and I think it was okay. But when I picked it up, it was just broken. It had scratches all over it, and I couldn't use it anymore. So I had to find a replacement, and I tested out my girlfriend, her 5200 lens of Sony. She also has a Sony camera, so that's pretty easy to use. And but it's a crop lens, so used on a crop or on a full frame camera, it only produces 10 megapixel photos. So then I remembered that I shot with a little Pentax lens, this little guy, not on the Pentax but on my Sony, and I used an adapter for it, just a simple $20 adapter from K&F Concepts, and it was nice to do. It's only manual focus, but it worked and it produced pretty nice images. Then I also remembered I have another lens, this one, a Takumar A7III f4 lens, and I put it on the adapter, took some photos, and it beat the Sony 5200 lens. I think mainly because the 10 versus 24 megapixels. So that was what I was going to use since my Sony A7III f4 was in repair. So I took the lens and headed out into nature, and I think I shot my best photos with it in the last 2 months. So that's pretty nice for a 30-year-old lens. So I brought this lens with me, and I was lucky there were no mountains because of this. If I face it upwards, it just falls down, the zoom ring. So that's terrible. So when I have a slightly longer exposure, this is not usable at all. But luckily I'm in the Netherlands and we only have flat landscapes. So I was using this lens, and at f4 it was terrible and very soft. So I set it on f8 and the sharpness was just great. It was actually perfect. Okay, the corner sharpness wasn't that good, but I don't mind it that much because the photos I take most of the time have the subject in the center or near the center and not at the corner. So I was okay with that. Also, flare is something to be aware of. Older lenses, and even this was a cheaper lens, it's maybe $20 nowadays to buy second-hand. So yeah, the flare isn't that great, but for $20 it's fine. So, oh, and of course I had to use manual focus, but with the Sony A7III sensor I can do focus peaking, so the little red dots give me precisely where the sharpness is. So that was not a problem at all, because landscape photography is about slowing down, being in nature, getting a tripod, so that was just fine. And well, I took these photos and it got me thinking, um, can I use this lens maybe more often oh, the lens cap is falling off. It's loose, it's old, not working that great anymore. So it got me thinking, can I use this lens as a backup for in the future, or maybe to save some weight? And I think I can for landscape photography, not for portraits or sports or whatever, but for landscape it's fine. And so the next time when a lens breaks or whatever, I'm bringing this lens. And I also have a Tokina 28-70 lens, also a very old lens and not the best of its kind, but I also want to test this out. And since my Sony 24-70 GM f2.8 lens is on my camera right now, but I will test these two, set these two against each other to see what are the major differences. And I can imagine micro contrast, corners, or all those kind of things are better on the GM. But what if the GM lens is too big or is broken and in for repair? Can I do it with a lens, a manual focus lens of 20 years old? And yes, I think I can produce amazing shots with these lenses. So gear is important, but sometimes you can use very old lenses and cheap lenses to create or produce pretty good photos. So in the next video I want to go out in nature and take these lenses with me when I have my Sony 7200 f4 back from repair and do some tests, side-by-side comparisons, and see if it's really okay to use these lenses. But for now I create decent shots and I'm happy with it. So let's see what happens in the next video when I test these things out. Okay, see you next time. Bye.